Sarah Palin. Let's talk about Sarah for a minute. Every time I see Sarah Palin on the news, I start laughing. It's not for the reasons you might think of. I mean, yeah, she puts her foot in her mouth a lot. Yeah, she sounds like a kindergarten kid that's dyslexic and got their meds mixed up. But you know what really gets me laughing about Sarah Palin? I think she's a fucking Bigfoot. That's right, a Bigfoot. Sasquatch, you know, the big hairy white creature. Bear with me here. When I was a kid, I grew up with Eddie Murphy back when he was a dirty, hilarious comedian. Eddie Murphy Raw, Eddie Murphy Delirious. Nowadays, I'm not talking about the Eddie Murphy that we have today, the Eddie Murphy where he's a hilarious, kid-friendly donkey on Shrek. I'm talking about good old-fashioned Eddie Murphy in tight leather, swearing his ass off, being so funny, you got tears rolling down your face. And if you've seen some of the old Eddie Murphy, if you've seen Raw Delirious, you might remember this. He's getting into his family get-togethers, and the fact that his father's brother, his Uncle Gus, was married to a Bigfoot. Eddie was convinced that his Aunt Bunny was a Bigfoot. If you remember, his father gets drunk, talks about when he took his nephews out fishing, put them in the boat, gave him a fishing rod, put a worm on the hook, turned around, they all had their faces in the water. A minute later, they pop up, fish in their mouth, takes a fish out of their mouth. Goonie goo goo. What the fuck is Goonie goo goo, Gus? Your wife's a fucking Bigfoot, Gus. You remember that? You remember the good old Eddie Murphy? Your wife's a fucking Bigfoot, Gus? That's what goes through my head every fucking time I see Sarah Palin. Every time I see her, she doesn't even have to open her mouth, although when she does, I'm even more convinced. But I see a picture of Sarah Palin, I see video of her on TV, I see her giving a speech, I'm in hysterics. And all I see standing there is a fucking shaved Bigfoot that learned how to speak English. Granted, it's not very good English, and she sounds like a retarded 4-year-old, but if you realize she's a fucking Bigfoot, it all makes sense. All of a sudden, Sarah Palin's pretty smart, because if she's a Bigfoot, she's learned a whole new language. She's learned how to integrate herself into a whole other society. Think about it. She's not a big hairy Sasquatch anymore. She's shaved herself, somehow got rid of the facial hair. She's actually got the wig on properly. She's doing her makeup well. She actually looks like an attractive human woman. That's quite an accomplishment for a Bigfoot. I'm thoroughly convinced that her family is very proud of her. Think about it. You would be. You and your Bigfoot missus, you have some big feet children, and one of them goes off into the great big wide world and goes and sees those scary humans. The next thing you know, she looks just like one, even a pretty one. She's talking like a human, somewhat. She's even leading the humans in a little cold spot where a lot of other Sasquatch live around. So it's nice because you can visit. Pretty impressive. If you're Mama and Papa Bigfoot and your little girl, Sarah Palin, that's what they call her now. I'm sure her name was like Ooga Wooga or something like that in Bigfoot. But now she's Sarah Palin. She's a leader. To some people anyways. She's even got people throwing her tea parties constantly. You don't really understand what that is, but it's on the news all the time and your little girl is making good. But backing up a second and never mind what Mama and Papa Bigfoot think, every time I see Sarah Palin, I can't stop fucking laughing. Just looking at her. I'm not seeing her in the eyes of Mama and Papa Bigfoot. I'm not thinking, oh, look what our little girl's become. I'm just looking at the fucking Bigfoot on TV trying to speak 3-year-old retarded English. And I can't help it. It's fucking hilarious. So maybe I'm a bad person. You know, maybe I should just be looking at how advanced, how far that little Bigfoot girl has become. Now she's Sarah Palin, ex-governor of Alaska. And it's impressive. But the little devil in me just starts howling every time I see Bigfoot Sarah on TV. I'd actually love to meet her. I want to just walk up, look her straight in the eye, shake her hand and say, Goonie goo goo, Sarah. Goonie goo goo.